Hi, in this video I'm going to add the vocal to the mix of the new Awash song. I will show you all the processing that I do on the vocal tracks, and I will show you how I combine them with the already existing tracks in the mix. So let's go! Welcome to another episode in the new song production series, which is a series of videos in which I show all the steps that I go through in my home studio to produce a new track for my band Awash. In this episode I'm going to add the lead vocal tracks to the mix, and if you want to see how I recorded those, you can have a look at the video over here. Now, since the last video, which was about adding the snare drum to the mix, I've also added all the other drums to the mix now. I've done that off camera, so let's have a look. So what you're seeing here is the by now familiar project, if you've seen any episodes in this series before. And let's just have a listen to what's in the mix now already. So if we look at the mixer, you can see that here in blue we have the bass tracks that have been added already. And over here we have all the drum tracks that have been added. And the tracks that we're going to add now are on the left here, which is the lead vocal up until the lead vocal summary channel over here. So let's first add the main lead vocal without any processing and see what it sounds like.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
So the first step in my processing is always the bridge and channel. I use it for two things. One is to add a slight flavor of a Neve console, and the other thing is to bring the track up to level so that it's at an ideal level for further processing down the line with all the plugins.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life.
So yeah, it's around 0 dB VU, but we'll use a lot of compression and evening out of the vocal to get it more prominent in the mix. The second plugin is a Pro Q equalizer. Now what I'm basically doing over here is that I cut out the low end to make sure that there's no rumble or anything like that of microphone handling in the track. The human voice doesn't really have a lot of low end anyway. So if I add these one by one.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life.
There's a bit of low end cut, but yeah, we have other instruments to cover the low end anyway. And it's not very obvious. So the next three cuts that you're seeing are to cut out some resonances. I'll let you hear them.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on. Engrave your heart, rip me apart, minimalize. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on the chord.
Yeah, these resonances just make the voice sound more harsh and have some nasty rings, so I cut them out. But further down the line I'll add a plugin which cuts even more resonances. The next one is a de-esser, and this is the de-esser from the UAD card. Now the challenge of a modern lead vocal is often that you want a lot of high end in there to make it cut through the mix. But at the same time you want to control the high end so that you don't get too much sibilance and all kinds of nasty sounds. And that's why you'll see me use a lot of de-essing in the processing. There's a couple of stages of de-essing, add high end, de-essing, add more high end, etc. And this is the first stage of de-essing.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding.
Yeah, you see that it's regularly cutting out some sibilance. Next plugin on this track is the good old 1176 compressor, 4:1 compression ratio, and using the classic smiley settings of the attack and release knobs.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Yeah, so it's the first level of dynamic control for the vocal. you can see it has quite a bit of compression, like 5 to 7 dB of compression. And that's just fine for this quite loud part of the vocal actually. And the next plugin is again another classic, which is the pull tag from the UAD cards, the old one even. And I mainly use it to boost some high end at 12K, but I'm also cutting some of the very high end to make sure that it doesn't become too harsh or too shrill.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Now let's listen to it with the other tracks.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I...
Alright, so the next 3 tracks in the project are the vocal thickening tracks, which is a trick from Warren Ewart that produced like a pro. They are basically the lead vocal, but then made into stereo tracks using the Waves doubler plugin and setting it to increasing levels of detuning. So this is -3 plus 3 detuning, this is -6 plus 6 detuning, and this is -9 plus 9 detuning. So I won't go into how I got those exactly because you can have a look at Warren's video about that. So let's have a listen to how that sounds.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life.
Yeah, so by itself it sounds kind of weird, but we're going to process a bit with the Pro Q. And over here I don't need any low end at all on these extra vocal tracks. And I'm also getting rid of most of the high end to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the high end of the main lead vocal, so that you don't get some nasty phasing effects. And additionally, what I'm also doing is I'm compressing the hell out of them to make them very even. Let's have a listen again.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive.
And now combined with the lead vocal.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am
Yeah, I'm mixing them in really subtly, but you can hear it a little bit, and it makes the vocal a little bit more spacious. Okay, so all the vocal thickening tracks end up in this vocal thickening group, and both the vocal thickening group and the lead vocal track end up in the lead vocal summary group, so that I basically have one fader to control the lead vocal sound with thickening. And the first thing I do on that vocal track is try to even out the vocal even more, with an even more heavy-handed approach than the compressor, and that's the vocal rider by Waves. Now you can do this by hand as well, ride the fader to make sure that the vocal stays even throughout the song and that you're also hearing some parts that the singer sang more quiet. But I think this vocal rider actually does a much better job than I can do by hand. So I'm using that. Basically what you're seeing over here, if we look at the project, this is the automation that controls the vocal riding. And I wrote that once by having a playthrough with the vocal rider in write mode and Cubase in write mode. And now I'm just having the vocal rider and the automation in read mode, so that the same vocal rides are played every time in the same way when I go through the song. I'll show you how active it is.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Yeah, because this is a more loud part of the song where the singer is singing more loudly, you can see that it mostly rides the fader down, where initially in the beginning you see that it rides the fader up because the singer is singing much more quiet in those places. Okay, back to the mixer. Now after the vocal has been evened out by the vocal rider, I'm doing some more high-end control. And in this case I'm using a multiband compressor, and I have it set to, well, around 6000 kilohertz and above. And I'm basically aiming for compressing that high end when it gets really loud. And it looks like this.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life.
Again, more high-end control. After that, I'm going into a nice color compressor, which is the MJUC by Klanghelm. Probably one of my favorite software compressors of all. Let's see what that adds.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on.
Yeah, it really smooths out the vocal and gives it a bit of sheen, maybe. Typically, this kind of compression was done by an LA2A, but I really like this compressor more. It also has some more control. Up next is again some high-end control. In this case by the FabFilter de-esser.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Again, taking out some more of those harsh S sounds. Now after that I have another EQ. And for now the only thing that this EQ does is cut out the same low end again and add a bit more high end for that extra bright lead vocal to cut through the mix.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Now I have to say it's pretty hard to set this equalizer now already, because you don't hear the other instruments in the mix yet. So typically I will adjust this equalizer when I add more elements to the mix, so that the vocal maintains its prominent position in the mix. But let's have a listen with all the other instruments in there.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Yeah, this is okay for now. Now finally, as insert effect, I'm adding an instance of Soothe 2. I think this is actually just a factory default preset that it comes up with. And again, it targets the area between 2 and 8K mostly to dynamically reduce any resonances that occur there. So let's have a listen to what it reduces.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on.
Yeah, so in that last part you can hear exactly what it's cutting out. And it basically looks for resonances in the area that you indicate, and it cuts them out dynamically. Now, in addition to all of this, I'm obviously also going to add some send effects, starting with some blend and size reverb that I basically add to all tracks to make them sound like they're in the same room and to all blend them together a bit more.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on.
Now in addition I'll add some vocal plate, which is more a sort of color reverb.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on.
Next is a bit of vocal delay, although quite subtly.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and
now for the vocal delay I'm using a Timeless 2 delay from FabFilter, and I'm reducing the bandwidth to make sure that there's no low end and no high end in there. Next up is a bit of slap delay to make the vocal sound a bit thicker.
out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. I am holding on.
And this delay setting is actually a Waves J37 tape emulation set to 166 milliseconds, I think this is. And this is actually the typical John Lennon setting that Chris Lord Alge also uses on his tape slap delay. So I'm mixing it in a really subtle way so that it doesn't get in the way of the other delay. And finally, even more reverb, which is especially nice in the first more quiet part of the song, which is a big hole.
Out of the dark, take me apart, ready to dive. I'm just trying to find the life, and I am holding on. hard, rip me apart, minimalize. I'm just...
So as long as you're not hearing the other instruments, it's quite obvious, all these effects. But once all the other instruments get mixed in, it'll be a lot less obvious, and it'll just add some nice air and space around the whole vocal. And additionally, of course, I'm now doing the static mix. So right now all these levels basically are the same and stay static. But once I start doing the dynamic mix, I will start varying these effect levels as well to make sure that they fit more to every part of the song. But these are basically the levels that I think are okay for the more heavy part of the song, which you have been listening to in this tutorial. So that's basically it for adding the lead vocal to the mix. You may wonder why I'm doing this just after the drums and the bass, and that's really because the lead vocal is the most important part of the song. So I want to add it to the mix early, so that if I add all the other instruments, I can make sure that they don't push away the lead vocal and that the lead vocal still stays prominent in the song. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the little bell icon so you know when I post another video. And let me know in the comments what kind of vocal processing you typically do on a lead vocal. The next video on your top right here shows how I recorded a lead vocal, and under that is a video that YouTube found most suitable for you. So enjoy and see you soon.